Good morning, Year 6. I hope you're well and have had a good day so far. Today, in our reading lesson, we're going to continue thinking about Chapter 6 of Private Peaceful. And as part of that, we're going to make comparisons between characters and events within the text. To be successful in today's lesson, you're going to need to identify what questions are asking you to do after we've read the sections that are relevant. You're going to need to consider which element of the text linked to the quotation or the information that's cited. And you're going to need to include reference to the text in your answer. A bit of recall to begin with, then, just thinking about where things happen within the story. Where did Molly and Charlie meet up when they were having their clandestine rendezvous? Where did Joe go when Bertha was shot? When he reacted to the death of that hound, where did he go? Where did Charlie get a job after being sacked by the Colonel? And final one, where did Grandma Wolf move to after leaving the peaceful house? Shout out your answers. First one, what do we think? Where did Molly and Charlie meet up? It was Tomo's father's hut. To where Tomo and Charlie's father's hut was the place they were meeting, and that was actually where Bertha was shot. When Bertha was shot, where did Joe go? Yeah, it was the church tower, also known as the Belfry, which was the location that he visited and lay down in, and then was discovered by Tomo and Charlie, wasn't he? Where did Charlie get a job? It was on Farmer Cox's farm. Remember the farmer who liked to drink, the farmer who was in the pub the night people needed help looking for Joe. And finally, where did Grandma Wolf move to? It was the Colonel's house. Yeah, when she left to go and live at the Colonel's house. Okay, after the Colonel's wife died. Okay, right, guys. Go down to the bottom of the page. Now, if we look at this today, we are thinking about whether, for vocabulary, whether I've got the correct definition. So there's two potential definitions, there's small part and there's huge element. We're not going to read the whole page. What we're going to do today is going to think to the section that's around the vocabulary and then think of whether the definition is correct or incorrect. So if I look here, I can see sliver. So the word that I'm thinking about is sliver. And I then look at the whole context here. So that there's a sliver of a moon out there, a new moon. Okay. Now, if it's a new moon, I know that it's not going to be a whole moon. Okay. I also know that sliver, when I think about sliver as a noun, a sliver of cake just means a little bit of. Okay. So I think the correct definition there is small part. Okay. So a sliver. If it's a new moon, then it's just started up in the sky. Okay, so it's when we go from having no moon and just blackness in the sky to having a little bit of moon. So just starting to get an element of the moon appearing within the night sky. Okay, that's a sliver. Second one then here, I've got grieve. Okay, now my two potential definitions are fight or to feel sad and remember. Now, I know the context of this is that we buried Bertha the same day. So somebody's died. Now, when somebody's died, some people might fight, but I'm thinking probably it's more likely that people are going to think about feeling sad and remember. If I look at it again, but this time we said no prayers, we laid no flowers, we sang no hymns. Somehow none of us had the heart for it. Perhaps we were all too angry to grieve. So would it be that we're too angry to fight, or would it be that we're too angry to feel sad? So which would make sense there? So have a think about that. Circle or highlight whichever of the two definitions makes sense. Looking on page 78 then, we've got wailing's our first word. So we look again, is it going to be melodic or noisy and howling? So let's look at the context. He sang differently when he was frightened. No tunes or song, instead a continuous wailing drone. As I look at that, I'm thinking, if Joe's singing differently when he's frightened and there's no tunes or songs, if there's no tunes or song, is it going to be melodic? Is it going to be beautiful? Or is it going to be this noisy and howling sound? If he normally sings in a tuneful and song-filled way and he's now wailing, so it's the opposite of tuneful, what's it going to be? Is it going to be melodic, so beautiful, or is it going to be noisy and howling? Think about that. Then we've got stomping here. So here again, describing Joe's actions once he's gone away that night. Mother sent Charlie and me out in a different direction. I went down the lane calling for another way. I went as far as the brook where I stood and listened for him, for his heavy stomping tread, for his singing. So stomping tread is heavy stomping tread. Heavy. Would it be a heavy tiptoe, as one of the options is, or would it be a heavy, clumsy walk? What do I think would make sense as a definition for clumsy, for stomping? Okay. 79, then a couple of bits of vocabulary. Hesitate? Is it going to be to waver, to dilly-dally, or is it going to be when you wait? Okay, let's see. It's here. Afterwards, not one of them waited, or afterwards, not one of them wavered. Okay, or dilly-dallied. Okay, did any of them wait, or did any of them waver? Not sure. Got to think about the context. Okay, so again, this is when they've gone to the pub and asked people if they'll come out and then they'll work with them. Okay, here with second word then that we've got is dispersed. As everyone dispersed into the darkness outside the Duke, remember the Duke's the name of the pub, we can see it's a place name because it's got that proper name, capital letter. As everyone dispersed into the darkness outside the Duke, Molly came running up. Now, is everybody going to huddle up outside of it, or is everybody going to spread out looking for Joe? Which would make more sense? Are they going to all look in one place together, lots of them shoulder to shoulder, not social distancing, or are they going to spread out so they can cover the maximum space looking for Joe in the shortest period of time? What do you think is going to be the correct definition for dispersed there? Right, guys, same as normal, circle or highlight whichever of those definitions you think is correct for your first piece of work, please. Once you've done that, we're going to move on to our comparative work, where we're thinking about sections of the text. Now, I'll just read before we go on. I'll read page 81. So we found mother sitting there alone. I know you've read this already, but I just thought we'd rehash it. We found mother sitting there alone, clutching the arms of her chair and staring ahead of her. Charlie and I tried to raise her spirits, tried to reassure her as best we could. I don't think we were at all convincing. Charlie made her a cup of tea, but mother would not touch it. Molly sat at her feet and laid her head in her lap. A ghost of a smile came to mother's face then. Molly could give comfort where we could give none. Charlie and I left them there together and went outside into the garden. Clinging to what little hope we had left, we tried to go back in time to work out what might have been in Big Joe's mind to make him go off like that. Perhaps it could help us to discover where he had gone if we understood why he'd gone. Was he looking for something, perhaps? Something he'd lost. But what? Had he gone off to see someone? If so, who? There was little doubt in our minds that his sudden disappearance was in some way connected to Bertha's death. The day before, both Charlie and I had felt like going up to the big house and killing the Colonel for what he had done. Maybe, we thought, maybe Big Joe was feeling the same. Perhaps he had gone out to avenge Bertha's death. Perhaps he was skulking up at the big house, in the attics, in the cellars, waiting for his opportunity to strike. But we realised, even as we voiced them, that all such ideas were nothing but ridiculous nonsense. Joe didn't have it in him. So this idea then, Joe wouldn't ever kill, wouldn't ever hurt. That's not in his nature. Some options then. How are Charlie and Molly similar to each other here? So if I look back at the text, I noticed that Charlie and Molly both care about Charlie's mother. Okay, Charlie is trying to raise her spirits, as Tomo was, but also Molly is there trying to raise her spirits by giving her a cup of tea. The answer there is both Charlie and Molly care about Charlie's mother. Second section here says Molly and Charlie and Tomo left them there together. So did Molly and Charlie both go into the garden? No, they didn't. That's wrong. Third bit here, we see that the day before, both Charlie and I had felt like going up to the big house. Molly's not mentioned here at all, so it's wrong that Molly, not Charlie, said she wanted to kill the Colonel. So that's wrong. But how they're different to each other is that Molly, not Charlie, put her head on Charlie's lap. So if you look at that section there, Molly sat at her feet and laid her head in her lap. So Molly's almost leaning in, almost like a pet towards Mrs. Peaceful to give comfort. Okay, so it was Molly, not Charlie, putting her head there. So you've got to be careful here when we identify. Again, it shouldn't just be about it being a test, but if it were a test, it's little tests for you to check whether you're reading the options carefully. And if you were, then I think you would have got all of those correctly. Here then, for your comparison work, what I'd like you to do is to identify how on page 82, so looking back at the text that was sent on Tuesday, on page 82, how is Joe's reaction to Bertha's death the same as Charlie's, and how is it different to Charlie's? So which one of them gets angry? Which one of them threatens somebody? How do they differently react? How are they different in their reaction? Page 83 then, how is Tomo on page 83 similar to Charlie? How is he the same as them? And how on page 83 is Tomo different to Charlie? And then when Joe's found on page 84, which character is the most excited, the most pleased about that? And how is that shown when you compare their reaction to the other characters? For page 84 particularly, it's a kind of subjective answer. There's not necessarily a right or a wrong. I just want you to support your answers with some evidence from the text to show me that you're engaging with it. Thank you for your attention today, Year 6. I look forward to seeing those answers, hopefully this side of half term, if not the other side of half term. If this is your last lesson before half term, then have a great break. Bye-bye. See you soon, guys.